Assalamu alaikum. Let's continue with part 3 of post World War political development. Number 1, evaluation of non aligned movement. We have already learned about alignment movement. The non aligned movement has opposed colonialism, imperialism, and the racism. And imperialism is a system where there will be no country dependent on any other rich country. It has encouraged the decision of international disputes by peaceful means. India led this movement under the guidance of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as he was the Prime Minister of India at that period. India continued to actively support the non alignment movement as well. Even after the end of the Cold War, the importance of the movement has not been reduced. The non aligned movement was very popular even after the Cold War. The non aligned movement is based on the principles of humanism that are the eternal principles: global peace and equality. That means non-aligned movement works with the principle of peace and harmony. It has inspired the less developed countries to come together. It has also encouraged the decision or resolution of international disputes by very peaceful means. It always worked to take a firm stand on disarmament, fostering human rights, and active participation of all the countries. The non aligned movement put forth the problems of the poor or needy peoples, underdeveloped countries very firmly. This movement made a demand of a new international economic order, NIEU. It worked for non-aligned movement. Summarizing briefly the importance or significance of non-aligned movement has not even reduced if the Cold War is over. It inspired the less developed countries to come together. It brought several new streams of economic and social changes into international politics. It gave these countries the confidence to assert themselves or to be with each other with self respect in international politics. End of the Cold War. The Cold War that had dominated international politics since 1945 at last came to an end. It was an important event that happened towards the end of the last century, that is, the 20th century. There were many reasons for the end of the Cold War. Let's learn about the reasons of the Cold War. The Soviet Union adopted the policy of opening up the economy. Means there are no barriers for the economy. All the countries can do trade with each other. The Soviet Union loosened up its control of the economy. The then President of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, implemented or practically practices the policies of perestroika, that is restructuring is reforming, and glasnost, that is openness of country with each other. Due to these policies, the control over the media reduced of the Soviet Union. Important changes took place in political and economical spheres are as follows. Spheres were restructured, means reformed. This gave impetus to the democracy of the country or the world. As the East European countries was under the influence of Soviet Union adopted now the capitalist and democratic paths. These regimes or this thinking there changed. The Soviet Union disintegrated and several new nations were created out of it. Means the Soviet Union, where we can say has been distributed in many other parts and new countries were merged. Russia was the biggest country in the Soviet Union. So let's do NATO still exists, but its nature is no longer military. I hope you all remember the military organization that we have already discussed in last lecture. Now let's find out the countries that are still the members of NATO. When there is only one superpower and several countries are dependent upon it, then thus this principle is known as unipolar system, or this international system is called as unipolar system. The division of nations between two superpowers, I hope you remember, between Soviet Union and America is called bipolarization, that we have already discussed in the last lecture. When many countries emerge as superpowers in the international system, and then there, what can that system be called? I hope you all will be questioning yourself. For this, you are required to write an essay on futility of war. Just check it out in Google. Some points have been given below to help you to discuss them. Any problem can be solved by discussions and negotiations. When there is a dispute between two friends, even at that time we discuss. Problems cannot be solved by war. There is no means to have war to solve your problem. War puts a spanner in the wheel of development, means it spans us by our own will. Post Cold War world, means after Cold War world. The Cold War came to an end with the disintegration of the Soviet Union. While till then had been a superpower, what do you think? Who will be the superpower? Yes, as a result, major changes took place in world politics. For example, only USA, that is America, remained the only superpower in world politics. A conducive or good atmosphere prevailed for the growth in trade, not only in their own country but all over the world. Economic relations also became better. Capital, labor, market, and information circulated throughout the world. Ideas spread freely as well. There is a spread of ideas as well. As all nations of the world decided to give priority to trade relations, the idea of giving aid to other nations fell behind. Aid means help. Instead, efforts began to be made to establish economic relations between all over the country in all over the world. The description of a country which was opposed to another has now changed, means the thinking pattern of all the countries who were opposed to themselves or each other has changed now. From enemy nation to rival nation, enemy has changed to rival. Rival is competition. The responsibility of United Nations, that is to create, or like the main purpose was to avoid war, has been increased. The United Nations now had to take more effective or concrete steps to maintain global peace and security all over the world. Environmental protection, fostering of human rights, gender equality, and management of natural calamities now acquired a global dimension. We can say it as fame. What is globalization? After the end of the Cold War, trade and economic relations between the countries became more open. As been mentioned before, capital, labor, markets, and information begin circulating globally, that is, all over the country in the world. The give and take of ideas among people and countries all over the world grew. Due to the revolution in information technology, different events and developments began to be known everywhere in the world. The boundaries between nations did not remain as sacrosanct, that is hard, as they were before. Means the boundary also has become very easy between the countries. All these processes are together called globalization. Just as globalization has brought us benefit, it also caused losses. For example, as the economics of different countries get linked with each other, means dollar, euro, rupees, trade increased, economic unification grew. Plenty of products became available in the market in all over the country in the world. But at the same time, the gap between the poor and the rich, that is needy, did not reduce at all. In this chapter, we studied the global developments from 1945 onwards. We understood the world in the Cold War period, the arms race, and the efforts at disarmament. We also learned about the meaning of globalization. In the next chapter, we